Well, a little piece of trivia for you. April 19th, if anybody who's historically minded will remember that is traditionally Patriots' Day. And if anybody has a working knowledge of the Revolutionary War, they will know that that's when the British descended upon Boston, and then mass notifications of the British are coming. Were made. Of course, it was immortalized. It was immortalized by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. And it goes, "Listen, my friends, and you shall hear of the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere." Little piece of trivia, though. I grew up in Acton, Massachusetts, which was the next town west of Concord. The Battle of Lexington and Concord, and anybody who knows their local history knows that Paul Revere got captured by the British. It was actually fell on Samuel Prescott and Luther Conant to kind of finish that famous Midnight Ride. So, however, I don't think there'd be much poetic significance if we heard, "Listen, my friend, if you have a moment to hear the unfinished ride of Luther Conant." I think that was a 4.3 earthquake. That was the Longfellow turning over in his grave. But I think on the more serious things, and today, the beginning of a 3-part series on bullying in the Turner Syndrome community, with Brother Mark, Turner Syndrome's Butterflies in Life. To deal with the complexity of the whole bullying issue and the attacks and everything else is really going to take about it's going to almost take about 3 installments to get through it. Keep in mind, I'm busy at work, and also our family is still mourning the loss of a relative who sadly succumbed to the COVID-19 virus. So that's hitting a lot of us hard. So remember us. So we can get that, and then also I'm in a line of essential work, and I've just been racking up a lot of overtime. So it's just pretty much eat, sleep, and work, and that's about it. But here's what I'm going to kind of deal with. I'm going to deal with just kind of, for those who are tuning in, and I know that we got some recovery communities that have been following along this outside the Turner Syndrome community that have also been kind of interested in it because they're in recovery from bullying and from what's called narcissistic abuse, and that I'll be dealing with on a third video. So I'm going to deal in 3 parts. Part 1, which is today, is going to deal with just the bullying, just kind of a synopsis of it, and then my own experiences with bullying. The part 2 is going to deal with the dynamics of female bullying, and then part 3 is going to deal with what's called narcissistic abuse and how it's playing out, how it's affecting the Turner Syndrome community, and if somebody feels that they've been engaging in it and they don't feel right and they want a way out, a way to come clean, I can come up with some recommendations. For those who are being affected about it, I can show you ways that you can protect yourself and how you can set boundaries. Because rule number 1, there is no reason for bullying anywhere, especially in the Turner Syndrome community, because we've been bullied. I have been, and we could go on for hours of the type of bullying that a lot of women have received growing up and still do today. And the main reason, people get hurt, and also hurt people. And the other thing too that is important to realize is that also I forgot what it was. Hurt people. And also, it just really projects a bad image on the Turner syndrome community. So, I'll deal with that in part 3. But today, though, I just want to kind of talk about my own experiences with bullying. Hurt people, and my story has bullying and being bullied, and I'm in recovery from it. I've got a lot of victory, and now a lot of time has actually gone beyond. I know that a lot of it, in my case, was a lot of displaced anger, not being able to properly express my thoughts and feelings. I was really fortunate, though, that I was in one of the first remedial schools that dealt with learning disabilities of the Summerhill model. So I have a lot of experience on, what the right way to do it, and I also got a lot of life experiences. So one thing about bullies in general, many of them are actually really hurting people, myself included. And some of the other ones. And the odd thing is that I've had some pretty horrific things happen to me, and then at the same time I've also been able to kind of see the other side of the bully, because I've seen some bullies come clean. So we'll just go over what can make bullying so maddening. I can remember when I was just a wee lad, when I was bullied by somebody at a horse stable, and he could really play a really now, even looking back on it, I was only 3 years old, 3 to 5, but still, that kid could play a nice little con game that, I'm getting all sorts of unspeakable abuse. I don't get into specifics because I want to keep it PG, is to borrow from Amy. But I do remember, even as a little kid, that bully could really play a sweet, innocent con game. Oh, David wouldn't do that. He's a good boy. That came from my mom. Just ignoring my hurts and my pleas, and just like, just that's kind of my complaints were just kind of dismissed. So, I've seen that theme kind of play out again with another bully in grade school. I was just torn to pieces, and yet my parents said, "Oh, Bobby wouldn't do that." And Bobby could play a nice little con game, looking sweet and innocent to everybody else, and behind the scenes, pow! Sometimes we have to kind of, really be smart to the games that people play, that the bullies play. Sometimes there's a power grab, and sometimes there can be a real thrill out of it. It can be real addicting, and I can speak from my own experiences. And sometimes it's the abused becoming the abuser. And I'm not proud of it, but I gave a cousin all sorts of grief when I was back in grade school. What finally put a stop to it? One, he's pretty athletic, and two, he grew up and was a lot bigger than I am. So that kind of stopped it. Although in the end, we became really great friends, and it was as luck would have it, it was an honor actually to be at his wedding back in 1987. So there you go. So that was a long time ago. And then the other thing that I realized, there's a lot of hurt behind the bullies. I've seen some hurting Turner syndrome sisters. I've talked to them. Before things blew up and all the rumors started getting thrown around and all the accusations, there are some genuinely hurting women who are just, I mean, dealt a bad deck of cards. It doesn't excuse their behavior, but at least it's understandable why they would find themselves in the bullying camp. Yeah, I look at two other bullies though that I mean, the things that happen. Well, it's 1969. The legal system was a lot different than it was today, but a lot of the things that were horrific, tragic, damnable, just gross, and so on and so on and so on, and scary. But then something curious happened, and I didn't think anything of it. And one bully back in a little New England town that I lived in, he was, well, I mean, he was definitely to be feared until one day I was waiting for the bus, and it turned out we had both missed the bus. So it's like, okay, well, so I think if I remember right, we were either waiting for rides to school, or else the city at the time had I think what was called the backup bus. I can't remember if I was getting a ride, if we were waiting for what was called the backup bus. So, I don't remember. But he got to talking. He was just sitting there, and he just was going through a lot of hurt. And since they had all the time in the world while we were waiting for the backup bus, he came clean a lot of hurts and why he was doing it, and he felt bad about it. And I listened and forgave him. Of course, I knew his mom too, and mom was just a great gal. And but still, I can remember just there was a lot of hurt that he had to process. So, and I think right then and there, I think even though I was in 6th grade, I forgave him. So sometimes it's hurt people. There was another group that of bullies that used to really raise Cain back at OU, and of course, since I'm born again Christian, it's like, okay, let's persecute the Christian down to the end of the hall game. And I mean, some of it was funny. I managed to have a good sense of humor about it all, and there was one funny incident. Although in later months, it kind of he really started to come clean. But I mean, there's one thing about Mike Hogan that we'll use another fictional name. That he was a punk rocker. He used to throw his weight around. And he used to terrorize the daylights out of me, and I just upright for him, paid no mind, and just kind of smiled graciously. There was one day, I have this kind of fun little story, but it was Memorial Day weekend, and of course, at a college campus, everybody goes home for Memorial Day weekend, so it's just I and Mike Hogan in the same dorm, and of course he was blasting his electric guitar up at full blast, and of course there's not anybody to be around to kind of take care of the situation. So, funny story is I went upstairs just to a friend's room, and we just kind of talked about it. I was able to process it, and I had to laugh at the time. I said, "Yeah, you're right." Keep in mind that a thunderstorm was getting ready to come through, coming roll through town, and I talked to my friends. Said, "Yeah, you're right. I know the Lord will take care of it." It did. Yeah. Was it the Lord? I don't know. Was it pragmatics? Yeah. Was it meteorology and physics that randomly at work? Take what you want. But what did happen is that lightning did strike the other side of the dorm and blew out his guitar amp, and then he came upstairs to my friend's room, and well, you can kind of picture what that looked like. It was, I mean, the look on his face and kind of the facial damage was admittedly comical. Was it karma? Nah, you don't know. But the funny thing was that fall, I ran into him in the library, and he wasn't the same Mike. If anything, he was rather subdued, and he just started sharing what was going on in his life, and I just listened, and I listened and tried to get understanding of what was going on, and then in the end, I could tell he was going through a lot of hurt, and he was acting out his hurt. And then I don't know what happened to Mike. I know he dropped out of college, and that was the last I ever heard of him. But the proper responses, I listened to those, I recognize that some bullies are the abused becoming the abusers. Sometimes a lot of it's displaced anger and then I've also done a lot of academic study, not only on Turner syndrome, but on learning disabilities and NVLD, and then some of the behavioral problems that can kind of come up with it. And I've also been on the receiving end. I just decide, what does bullying look like and why? So those are the general models of bullying. It can be displaced anger. It could be hurting people. Sometimes it can be sometimes there can be a really addictive thrill out of it, and that's of course where it gets really dangerous, and that's obviously at that point for everybody's safety. That's clearly where intervention is definitely in order, and I think any good academic text and any good social worker or anybody in law enforcement or anybody reputable in the clergy would have to say, enough's enough, and we got to deal with it, and sometimes it just takes somebody bigger to read the riot act. One last case of bullying and how it was stopped. Generally speaking, in one of my videos, if you go back, you'll hear about the story of Georgie Washington Lang, and he had a lot of hurts too, and he was in a blended family. He kind of resented the fact that he didn't have a say in it, and he was taking a lot of it out on us. And finally, the remedial school district had enough. And I said, I had enough. I was losing sleep, and then finally, a teacher read the riot act and said, "You come clean during lunchtime, and if he does anything, I will make sure that he's suspended." Yes, ma'am. And that was laying down the law. And the good news about that particular situation is we didn't run, we didn't hide, we didn't gossip. We dealt with it. I came clean and expressed my concerns, and then both men and women students came out and expressed their concerns about Georgie. And they were concerned. Both men and women, upperclassmen and lowerclassmen, we're all concerned. And we talked about it, and we found it, and then we found out what was really going on. And I wouldn't demonize, looking back, and I wouldn't demonize Georgie for a heartbeat. Now knowing what I know today. But somebody finally had to lay down the law, and then we talked, and then the all the teacher mediated. And we talked about it. I mean, we obviously, Georgie had found ways to he could voice his concerns, and then we were also set up a boundary, that hey, we're not going to be treated that way. And that's why I'm going to stand up against bullying, because it's wrong for the bullies, it's wrong for those who are being bullied, it's wrong for those whose relationships are getting destroyed, and I'm hoping that people will finally kind of go, well, this isn't such a hot idea. And I will say that if you are the bully and you're realizing it's wrong, congratulations, you are on the road to recovery. If you think that you are being bullied, then you come forward, come clean. And certainly enough, and it may take a lot of butterflies and friends to finally say, enough's enough. We can't take this anymore. And I think that one of the serious things that I said is, eventually, remember, let me put it this way. I know that we lost a butterfly because she was bullied. It turned out she was bullied in school. And it's only a matter of time that either somebody's going to lash out, they're going to feel backed in the corner. When someone's backed in the corner, they don't think straight. And that could be a messy situation. Or it could be that one day I and some butterfly friends are talking, and we'll get the bad news that somebody took their own lives because of it. I don't think any of us could sit with that one. So that's the general nature of bullying. In my next video, I'm going to actually go ahead and talk about female bullies, my experiences, why their MO is a little tricky, so that other people can be a little more aware. As always, take what you like, leave the rest, and hit the like button, and I'll talk to you next time.